So guys, if you have been following my channel, I'd like to say thank you and thumbs up to you. And if you are joining my channel for the first time, kindly go through the part 1, part 2, and part 3. This is the part 4 of the IT Ican IT course. It's a read along course. So all you just need to do is to get your study pack and read along with me and form your notes. It's as simple as that. My name is Father Ray Ayola. All I'm here to do is to read along the notes and explain some of the terminologies or the content of the notes as related to the real life situation in practice on the field. If you enjoy my channel, kindly give a thumbs up and subscribe so that I will be encouraged to give you more videos in subsequent time. Now, this is chapter 4, data processing. We'll be reading everything about data processes, the content of the channel, the types of files, processing activities, characteristics of files, file organization, processing technique, configuration of processing, the role of microcomputers in an accounting environment, information center, computer service bureau, information processing and electronic business technology. Then we'll talk about e-commerce. So let's dive into the notes immediately. Now, in section 4.1, we have the elements of a computer file. Elements of a computer file. What are the elements? Let's read. An entity is something about which information is stored. An entity is something about which information is stored. Examples include employees, inventory items, customers. These are the kinds of information an entity can decide to store, etc. The characteristics of interest in each entity is called an attribute. An attribute is the characteristics of interest in each entity. Which we need to be stored. Example, for instance, A, for employee, possible attributes are pay rates and PIN. B, for customers, possible attributes are name and addresses. Generally, each type of entity possesses the same set of attributes. However, the specific data value for those attributes will differ among entities. Data values are stored in a physical space called a field. So here we know that we can get the definition of an entity, also get the definition of an attribute, and get the definition of a field. As you can see, an entity is something about which information is stored. Example, employees, inventory item, customers. Now, what is an attribute? An attribute is the characteristics of interest in each entity. It's called an attribute. Then a field. Data values are stored in a physical space. So a field is a physical space where data values are stored. A computer file consists of a number of records. Each record is made up of a number of fields, and each field consists of a number of characters. So a computer file consists of a number of records. 1. Each record is made up of a number of fields. 2. And each field consists of a number of characters. 3. We now define these terms in details. Now you can write this also. A characters or character is the smallest element in a field and can be alphabetic, numeric, or special symbols. Each character, which is 1 byte, is made up of 8 bits in the EBDIC code system. B. Field is a collection of characters. A field is a collection of characters. So without a field, you can't gather different characters together. E.g. name, address, parent. C. Record is a collection of related fields. That is, a field is an item of data within a record. So that record now will gather all the fields. And field is a collection of different characters. Examples of record: a customer record consists of name, addresses, and etc. Database is a combination of files containing related data. Considering the table below, we have 4 fields and 3 records. As you can see, 4 fields, those are your columns: serial number, PIN, employee name, pay rate, sex. These are your fields. And in your rows, we have records: serial number 1, 2, and 3, with the PIN details, the name, pay rate, and their sex. There are 2 common ways of viewing computer files: A. Logical files, and B. Physical files. So what are logical files? Logical files are viewed in terms of what data item its record contains and what processing operation may be performed upon the files. The user of the file will normally adopt such a view. The logical files are viewed in terms of what data items its record contains. Those are logical files. And what processing operation may be performed upon the files. Simple. Physical files is viewed in terms of how the data is stored on a storage device, such as a magnetic disk, and how the processing operations are made possible. So physical files are those files stored in an hard disk drive. Simple. Types of files. We have 3 basic types of files, and they are: 1, we have the master file; 2, transaction or movement file; and 3, reference files. What is a master file? Master file is a fairly permanent in nature, and it is regularly updated to show a current position. This is the master file. It is the main file, and it is fairly permanent in nature. For example, you have a customer ledger or a payroll or an inventory. These are master files. For customer order will be processed to change the balance, but the name, address, etc. will still be the same. Number 2, transaction or movement file is made up of various transactions created from the source document. For example, in a sales ledger application, the file will contain all the orders, requests received at a particular time. This file will be used to update the master file, and then they will be discarded. Thus, it is a short lifespan file. It has a short lifespan. Reference file has a reasonable amount of permanency, which means sometimes it stays long. Example of data used for reference purpose are price lists, tables of rates or pay, names, and addresses. So let's talk about primary and secondary key. For those of us who are familiar with database application and programming, you'll be familiar with these two words, primary and secondary key. But for the remaining of us who are just reading to pass our examination, just read along and you will understand. A primary key. What is a primary key? It is a unique identifier of a record. Simple. A unique identifier of a record. Example, A, customer number in a customer ledger record is the primary key. B, stock code number in a stock record is the primary key. C, employee PIN in a payroll record is also a primary key. Sometimes the primary key is made up of from the combination of two fields. In this case, it is called a composite key. So when we have two different fields of primary key, it is now called a composite key or a compound key. A secondary key is another field to identify a record. Although it is not unique, a secondary key is not unique. Note that it is used to identify a group of records and it can be used to sort records. For example, the state of origin of a customer might be a secondary key. Let's go to processing activities. The major processing activities are A, updating, B, referencing, C, file maintenance, D, file inquiry or interrogation. A, updating. Updating, which involves changing the master file to reflect a current position. That is updating. Updating is simply a situation where the records in your database can be changed to reflect what is on currently. For instance, there are situations where after you've registered on the Ican site, you might need to update some of your records on the portal. Probably when you registered for Ican, you were still single. Now you are married as a lady, you want to change your name from Miss to Mrs. That is updating. B, referencing involves access to a particular record to ascertain its content. So if you are referencing a file, you just want to have access to that record just to see what is in its content, e.g., access to a price file during an invoicing run. C, file maintenance. File maintenance involves addition and deletion of records in order to create a new file, thus updating a file with a new record. So file maintenance is an advanced way of updating. In a situation of updating in A above, updating is just for you to change some of the records in the file. But in file maintenance, what you are doing is that you are updating, but you are changing the entire file, removing the entire file and placing a new file. D, file inquiry or interrogation. This is similar to in concept to referencing. It involves the need to ascertain a piece of information from a master file. So let's go to the characteristics of file. We have the hit rate. We will discuss four: hit rate, volatility, access time, and the size. So each rate, HIT rate, is used to measure the rate of processing of master file in terms of active records. It is the ratio of the number of records found and processed during a particular processing run to the total number of records available. So for instance, if we have 2,000 transactions are processed each hour against a master file of 20,000 records, so the hit rate is equals to 10. That's 20,000 divided by 2 gives us 10. Don't mind the funny characters we saw, it's just the conversion made on this system. Volatility is the frequency with which records are added or deleted from a file. Frequency, remember that, of which records are added or deleted from a file. If the frequency is high, the file is said to be volatile. A semi-static file has a low frequency. A static file is not altered at all. So when we talk of volatility, it means the thing can fly easily. C, the size of a file is the amount of data stored in it and expressed in terms of character or records. D, access time. Access time on disk is the time interval between the moment the command is given to transfer data from disk to main storage and the moment the transfer is completed. So we talk file organization. We consider file organization in both tapes and disk. File organization refers to the way data are stored in the physical storage media. So file, I don't want to dwell too much on file organization on tape. But let's read. Organization of a file on tape is simply placing the record one after the other onto the tape. There are two such possible arrangements. We have serial and sequential. In a serial, this is achieved when records are written onto tape without any relationship between the record keys. Unsorted transaction records would form such a file. Sequential, this occurs when records are written in sequence according to the record key. Example include master file, sorted transaction file. File organization on disk. We consider four basic methods. One, the serial method, the same as method on tape. Sequential method, the same again as that of tape. Then index sequential, this is the same as sequential organization, but with an important difference. An index is provided to enable individual records to be located. Thus, the index will determine the sequence. Then 4, random or direct access. Stored record stores record in no particular order. Instead, a mathematical algorithm is applied to the primary key to determine the primary address at which to store the record. Factors determining the method of data processing. The common factors determining the method of data processing are A, size and type of business, B, timing aspects, C, link between applications. So when we talk of factors determining the method of data processing, we are talking of what will enhance or enable you to process the data in your organization or at the entity you work with. So it now depends on the size and type of the business. If your business is large, if the organization is large, and the frequency in that business is fast, that will determine the kind of data processing you will perform. Timing aspects, if your business has to do with time, speed, and accuracy, then timing will be a factor. The link between application, the link between the application you use in creating your file and another application is very important. Let's read the link between applications. Sometimes a simple pool of data might be needed by many applications, and this will determine the technique to be used. For example, the data on items sold will be needed by the price list. the stock file, the invoicing production. This can easily be done through database management system, unlike the manual system. Stages of data processing. Whatever might be the method employed, the following stage will be followed during data processing. A, originating of data, that is the source of data, source document. B, preparation for data entry depending on the method, whether batch, online or real time, preparation for the data. C, imputing the data. D, processing to get the information using appropriate software. And E, output through appropriate medium. Processing technique. Depending on the determining factor for data processing, transaction may either be processed singly or in batches. A batch is a number of transactions accumulated together and processed at a predetermined time as a single unit. Batch processing. Updating master file periodically to reflect all transactions that occurred during a given time period is called batch processing. The master file is updated at predetermined time, daily or weekly, or whenever a manageable number of transactions are gathered. Note that the transaction data can either be entered as a batch or as each transaction occurs. So you can read the advantages of batch processing. You can just pick like 5 or 3 advantages and disadvantages. I won't dwell much on this one. Let's go to the remote job entry processing. Remote job entry processing. This refers to batch processing where jobs are entered at a terminal remote from the computer and transmitted to computer online, that is through telecommunication link, or offline through external storage link. What this is saying is that this refers to a batch. When we talk of a batch, we are talking of different units of a product packed together to form a bunch. That bunch is called a batch. For instance, we have 24 bottles in a crate of minerals. Each bottle is a unit. Those 24 forms a crate. That crate is called a batch. So when you are processing a batch, this refers to batch processing where jobs are entered at a terminal remote. When we talk of a terminal remote, it means a remote area connected through a form of a terminal. A terminal could be wired connection or wireless connection from the computer and transmitted to another computer online. Look at it, either through telecommunication link or offline using external storage system. An example of the external storage system is your flash drive. Online processing. Online processing method is the processing of data in which data is processed from terminals connected to the central processor. And when you hear terminals, just having at the back of the mind is devices. And what are those devices? Those are devices that will enable your central processor, that's your computer system, to be able to perform online processing. That's what it means. Advantages of online batch processing. I'll take like 3. It enables data to be captured close to the place where transaction occurred. 2, it minimizes paperwork. Then let me go to 4. It enables interactive data processing. The disadvantage, it is more expensive to set up and maintain than offline system, of course. 2, it may cause the host computer to be overloaded. Let's go to online real-time processing. When we talk of online real-time processing, it means the activity or the processing or the action you are performing online is real time. That real time means instant, instantaneous, sharp, sharp. As you are clicking, performing the task, you get the response instantly. Let's read. In this method, the computer captures data electronically, of course, edits it for accuracy and completeness, and immediately processes it. The processing of data is done so quickly that the result is available to influence the activity currently taking place. That's all you need to know. So, example of real-time processing include international hotel reservation. It's not compulsory to have to be international. It can be your own local hotel that is using internet. B, airline reservation and space exploration. The advantages is enormous. With common sense, you can even get the advantage. So I won't dwell on that. Let's go to configuration of processing method. There are three basic ways to configure the processing method. That is to determine the arrangement and location of the computer system. Centralized processing method, that's one. Let me see the second one. Decentralized processing method, two. Then we have distributed data processing, DDP. Let's do the centralized processing method. Here, all processing are done in a single place, that is the headquarters of the organization, and results are later distributed to various departments. In a centralized method, all terminals, all devices, and other devices are connected to a central corporate computer called a server. The advantage, better control over processing, more experienced IT staff, economic of scale that is cheaper to run. Disadvantage, greater complexity, higher communication cost of result to the department, no departmental secrecy. Let's go to the decentralization. So if one is centralized in one location, it means decentralization is scattered and every department, individual department can take its own decision. That is what decentralization is all about. So let's go to distributed data processing. This processing system is an hybrid that's combination of the centralized and decentralized system approach. Each location has its own computers to handle local processing, and the departments are all linked to each other and the corporate server. That's it. So you can go through the disadvantage and advantages also. So let's see the effect of CPU and operating system. In data processing, processing jobs or tasks can be done in several ways, depending on the type of CPU in use. We consider the following types: time sharing, multiprocessing, multitasking, and multi-programming. So let's talk about each of them. Time sharing processing. This is the method of data processing which enables many users to gain access to centrally located computers by means of terminals. The central computers allocate equal CPU time or time slice to each of the users to perform their tasks. Note, equal CPU time. The users are attended to whether on first come, first served basis or according to predetermined priority levels. The user with the highest priority is attended to for the time slice, and on expiration of the time, the next user with the next highest priority is serviced until all other users are serviced. A time slice is a brief amount of CPU time given to a process for users by the operating system. So it is the operating system that allocates time to the various users that needs the attention of the CPU. That is what it's all about. Multitasking. When we talk of multitasking, means you can do something, two or more activities almost at the same time concurrently. So let's read. This is a system that allows the computer to work on more than one job or task at a time. A multitasking system used on personal computer usually supports a single user running multiple programs at one time. Multitasking is accomplished in this way: context switching, cooperative multitask, preemptive multitask. You can read those terminologies also. Multiprocessing technique, which means you can process multiple items all almost at the same time. In this act of executing several processes simultaneously by a computer with more than one central processing unit. Computers that have more than one CPU are called multiprocessor. So there are some computers that have more than one CPU or processor. If you are an engineer, you open up your system, on the motherboard, you see something like a fan spinning almost at the center of that board of the computer. Now, once you remove that fan, you see a chip attached to the board. That chip is called the processor. And in some computers, higher pro computers, those chips can be about two, or multiple processors can be embedded as one and connected on your system.